everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unsubscribe, the Demand Drive podcast. It is I, your host, AJ Alonso, joined by my illustrious co-host with a brand new hat, Alex Ellison. Everyone give him a hand. Great looking hat.
Wow. I feel like I've come a long way from that time you forgot to introduce me at all. Now I'm illustrious. This is a great day. I'm so excited.
It was worth waking up for.
This was worth waking up for. You're right. We've got a fantastic guest with us today, Alex Jagrit Gambhir. He is the head of social, brand, everything marketing over at Kula. Excited to have him on the show. How are you doing, Jagrit?
I'm doing really well. I was a bit nervous for this, but really looking forward to having this conversation. And yeah, it's been a great week so far.
Love to hear it. We're going to be talking about something a little heavy today, I would say, but it can be light and fun. We're going to be diving into psychological safety for SDRs, something that a lot of organizations should have, something that a lot of organizations don't have, and something that organizations tout even though they don't have it. And I know you've got a lot of experience with this. It's something that you're passionate about. Before we dive into the topic and get into the nitty-gritty, let's learn a little bit more about you. What do you do at Kula? What has your career been like so far? Just give us, the 101 on yourself.
Sounds good. Recently, I made a transition from sales to marketing after 3.5 years in sales. I made a transition finally to the dark side. A year ago, I would have never thought that I'll see myself here. But funny how life happens. So I've been looking after their brand and social media initiatives. Just really focused on how can we differentiate ourselves in our content and social media strategy, in our branding strategy. What are all those things that I used to pass my judgment on that, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that as an outsider. Now it's an opportunity for me to actually be in the trenches and do what I used to believe that, easy tasks, what do marketers even do? But yeah, now it's my opportunity to be here and do all the things, all the innovative things, all the ideas that keep bustling in my head and actually put them to practice. So that's what I've been doing at Kula. I joined as the first sales hire, laid the foundations for the sales team for the first 6 months. And then this was an opportunity that came my way just because as a full cycle AE, 60-70% of your job is the SDR role. And I gave that role all my all in the past 3 years, and I just didn't have enough in me to keep doing it more. So we were like, okay, what do we do now? What's something that, again, keeps me excited, keeps me going, right? So just through the habit of the last 2-3 years of being able to create a content, strategy and brand for myself, for my own LinkedIn, the founder and the head of marketing was like, okay, let's see if you can do the same for Kula's social media as well. So that's how the opportunity happened. Previous to Kula, I was at an employee experience company called Infido. And prior to that, I was at a company called Netcore. So my SDR journey started from Netcore. Then I excelled at the role at Infido. And then at Kula, I came back in time to actually build the sales engine I was in at Infido. Did that, was like, okay, let's try something new. And now I'm here.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, and you said like when you were at Infido and you were kind of the SDR there, building out a lot of what you're using now to help, or what you use to help Kula build their function. Like pre-show, we talked a lot about this, but you used that experience to really dive into like, what does it look like to be a good SDR? And a lot of the stuff that you talked about on LinkedIn and sort of from knowing you was about authenticity. You were very vocal online about the importance of that as an SDR, how that like propels you from just being a rep to a top tier, like good high level performer. Why did that matter so much to you? Like what made you latch on to that specifically, like being authentic and sort of being yourself as a rep, to sort of then share online about how you were able to use that as being a top performer?
Got it. I'll start with a story, right? Or like who I am as a person, be it at work or outside of work. I tend to I attract people, or I attract places where I can just be myself, right? That is my space of comfort. That is where I feel like I don't have to act, I don't have to put on a mask, I don't have to behave like a person that I'm not, right? And just doing it, even for a couple of days, if you try it, you're gonna get exhausted, right? So I figured that out early in life, and be it at work, be it in relationships, friends, always I seek those people, those kind of opportunities where I can just be my authentic self and I don't have to fake it. So yeah, that is one of the reasons why it's so important that for anybody out there who's in any role, they are provided with that comfort, that safety net, that psychological safety, that hey, you can bring your authentic self to work, your ideas are valued, you won't be punished, or there won't be any negative consequences for you trying new things, you just being yourself, and sharing your opinions, be it to the CEO as well, right? Or to anyone. So just that safety and that comfort really, really, yeah, it gives you that energy to go out and be yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important part of the sales role that I think everyone seems to be talking about it now. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't feel like that was the case. That's about the limit of my experience in the SDR role, but I'd be curious to see, what you think has changed within SDR and sales to over the last 5 to 10 years to create that sort of importance that people realize on authenticity, on being yourself in your outreach and the work that you do.
Got it. Alex, if you think about it, the early 2000s, right? Virtual selling wasn't a thing. A salesperson, you used to meet prospects in person, build those relationships, have that human touch, and close deals, right? Make those conversations and get that revenue. But in the early 2010s, the last decade, right? The early last decade, selling became virtual, right? Now you're sitting in some part of a country and selling it to a totally different market altogether, right? So technology enabled that. But with technology, you lose human touch, right? And it took the sales community a while to really understand why are the strategies that initially worked for us maybe 5-10 years ago, when we first started doing this, why are those strategies not working for us anymore? And the reason for that is people are tired. They're just coming off a pandemic. They're in front of screens all day. They are consuming so much content. There's so much clutter out there, right? And if you treat them like a prospect or a lead in an Excel spreadsheet that you're just calling every day, right? Then that won't do the job for you. It might, and that's something that we've discussed previously as well, that if you send 100 emails randomly, right? Let's say you didn't spend time in really figuring out who are the right people you should reach out to. If you didn't personalize it, you just mass emailed 100 people. Just by probability, 2 or 3 of them would be like, okay, let's have a conversation, figure out what this is about. But at the same time, the other 97 people, you're pissing them off, right? And for how long can you continue to do it over and over again? You will run out of people to reach out to. Your market is only so big. So how do you make sure that while catering to the active 2-3 people who are buying, right? They say only 2 to 3% of your prospects or your target market is ready to buy. What are you doing with the other 97%? So that's a long-term play that people don't really think about. They've started to do that now because, quarter after quarter, they're not able to hit their targets. Leadership teams are trying to figure out what the hell is going on, right? Why are we able to do this maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the exact same thing, and why is it not working now? So they've started to grasp what has changed. But basically, according to me, because of technology, the human touch was being removed out of the equation. But now buyers know, and sellers also hopefully know, that human touch is an integral part of what sales is all about. And you have to be able to put your authentic self out there, just so that, buyers also have preconceived notions of salespeople, right? Everyone has heard of jokes about typical car salespeople or insurance salespeople. So before you get in touch with somebody, they already have 10 to 15 to 20 bad experiences that they've already had. And your job is to not only be different, but your job is also to do that while knowing that they have been scammed before, they have wasted their time with people before, and you can't do anything about it. But what you can do is change this experience for them, right? Give them that positive hope that, okay, not everyone is like that. Maybe this person is different, right? So that helps you do that.
Yeah, I the way that I look at it, very much aligned to what you were saying. But like, if you're a buyer, or if you've ever been prospected before and you don't like the experience that you had, it's easy to point out why. Like you were saying, like you feel like it's just maybe a robot reaching out to you. Like they don't care about you. They don't care about what you actually want. They're just dumping features and benefits on you. Kind of hoping that like, yeah, you're in that sort of 2 to 3% of people in market who are just like, you know what? Yeah, we've been talking about this. Let's hop on a meeting. That very impersonal, inauthentic, just like this could be anybody reaching out to me kind of feeling is what often turns buyers away from
Absolutely
the salesperson. So if you think about, well, how does my buyer buy? Like, how do they actually want to go through this process? And you look at really good examples of reps who have actually done the work, done the research, guided prospects, didn't hard sell them, like all that good stuff that we talk about now. 5 years ago that didn't exist because we didn't know. It wasn't just like, I don't know, it just wasn't as common of an issue, I guess, or like we were still okay with only capturing 2 to 3% of people in market. But I guess now there are less bridges to burn because you burned so many already.
So many.
It's like, oh, we've got to figure out what to do here because our total addressable market is shrinking by the day.
Yeah. And, if you think about it, it used to be very transactional, right? Now that doesn't work anymore. Buyers want to be in control of the buying process as well, right? As a salesperson, you can't dictate that this is how our company sells. No, you have to sell the way, like you have to find a middle ground between, like, let's say you're working at a company like Salesforce. Yeah, they have their processes, they have all the guidelines laid down, but you still have to take into consideration how the buyers want to buy, right? So like most of the buyers now, they have all the research just a click away, right? Like they can just simply Google, they can go to G2, they can check your social media, they can do all the kind of research that they can even before they come on a demo with you, right? So how can you assist them in their own discovery process is how you stand out, right? How do you make that process easier for them? Because if I am tasked to go out and buy a software, right, it's honestly like, unless like I believe that this is directly going to impact me or let's say my team, for some reason, let's say I have to go about as a CEO, you're buying software for the HR team or you're buying software for the marketing team at a very early stage, right? Now, how you as a salesperson, how do you make that discovery process easy for me, right? How do you give me the right information? How do you make me informed so that while you do that and while you are genuine in your inputs, right? You can't be like, okay, this is a head-to-head between us versus the competitor where, you put no research into, what are the actual benefits of the competitor. I see so many competitor comparisons where they've simply crossed all the features that you provide, and it looks so fake, right? That, okay, out of 10 features, you provide 9 out of 10 and they provide 2 out of 10 and yet you call them a competitor. So if you are this not genuine in your, when you support the discovery process of your buyer, then that comes across as well. So there's a thin line between being helpful and being salesy. So you have to find what that line is and just give, right? Help the prospect as much as you can. If they are not a right fit for the product that you sell, let them know and help them, guide them to what the right product would be, right? If you sell technology for, let's say, a particular segment of marketing automation, and if the use case that the buyer comes to you with, you're not a perfect solution, or like you're not a bang on solution for those their needs, and you have another player in the market who does that along with other things, right? And they're not let's say a competitor of yours. Go out and help them with that research, right? Guide them to those solutions. That is how, let's say, 6 months later or 12 months later, when they think, okay, I've already I've spoken with this particular company, this particular salesperson. It wasn't a right fit back then, but they helped me with this, this, and this, right? They remember feeling good about you helping them. They might not remember what you did, right? How did you help? But they remember that feeling, right, of you giving to them. So, then that puts you in their good books. And when the need arises, they hit you up, right? And most probably they'll not even go to your website to sign up for a demo. Most probably they will reach out to you again, right? So that is how you play a long-term game, where you're just having those conversations, being genuine, focusing on how can I help the person. And yeah, the byproduct of that would be me being able to hit my quota, right? But if, let's say, forcefully as a salesperson, I closed a customer that is not a good fit, what happens? They're unhappy. The customer success team struggles to retain them. It just becomes an unnecessary cost that is anyway not gonna give you recurring revenue, right? So if your salespeople are motivated, like you are motivating them to go out and sell however they can, then they will end up doing this. But if you are like, we just need the right kind of customers, it's okay, we'll figure out your quota, we'll figure out how you're gonna hit it. But do not focus on the wrong people. Focus on getting the right people, helping the right people, and the revenue will come. If not this week, maybe next week. If the deal won't close in this quarter, maybe the first month of the next quarter. So just putting the prospect in the middle of everything and revolving your strategy around it can be just like super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also like that it ties into that authenticity, because the less pushy you are, right? That fine line you're talking about between being salesy and being helpful is a lot of it is really just about them getting the right impression of you. So to be comfortable to say, hey, no, we're going to go with a competitor. I feel like, especially in the SDR role, you get ghosted constantly. And a lot of times it is, right? Someone's just going with a competitor, but they might not be comfortable saying that to you. And then all of a sudden you're spending time, you're reaching out to this person where it's no longer a good opportunity. It should have been disqualified a while ago. So love that you sort of pulled those two things together and align them. Because the authenticity with the building rapport and not being too pushy, really it's all the same thing. And it just has to do with having that right mindset going into it.
They're all interchangeable, right? Like you want to carve out that space in your prospect's brain for like your name, your brand, what you do, so that, like you're saying, the 12 months down the line, if they need something and you happen to be a fit, they remember that experience with you and they come back to you. You've done a good job at carving that out. But like, it's impossible to do that carving out in their brain if you're not like authentic, if you're not helpful, if you're just being a pushy salesperson. Like theoretically, I can carve out space in someone's brain by calling them 2 times a day for 4 weeks and then subscribing them to a newsletter that they didn't actually sign up for. I'm doing the wrong kind of work to carve that up. But it's still the same act. And I think a lot of salespeople look at persistence in that fashion, right? Like, oh, if I'm persistent, I'm carving out more space for them to know who I am. But you're doing it in a way where they have a negative opinion of you, whereas you're talking about it in a way where they have a positive experience and will come back to you at some point in the future.
Persistence and pushy are two different things, and I think people confuse that, right? Doesn't like try till you get a no. Okay, how are you trying, right? Okay, good advice. Try till you get a no, or try till you don't get an answer from them. Great, but how are you trying? Are you just sending them automated follow-ups with canned messages and expecting them to respond and calling that as persistence, versus you actually thinking about them and their needs and how could you provide value, even if, let's say, they're not buying your product at the moment, right? How can you just be in their good books? How can you just help them? Even if, let's say, in 12 months down the line, they don't end up buying, that's okay. Like, if you do all the good deeds that you do, thinking something is gonna get it, you're gonna get something in return, then I don't think that's a sound approach to it, right? You have to continue giving to anyone and everyone you can, and yeah, if something comes back in return, great. If it doesn't, that's also great. At least you can have a peaceful sleep at night, knowing that you didn't spoil someone's day, you didn't waste someone's time, you didn't waste someone's money, right? And Alex, you mentioned, right, authenticity. So being able, like, why do salespeople get ghosted? Because, like, the buyer does not feel comfortable in saying that no, right? But if you come across as your authentic self, they know that they can also be real with you, right? They won't give you generic responses to why we can't move forward. They will give you real reasons to why they can't move forward. So first of all, you'll get a response and you'll get a real response, because most people give you those generic reasons for not going ahead, right? But what are the underlying reasons? You will only be able to get to know once you have that rapport, once you know that they have a good opinion of you, they consider you as an extension of your, let's say, whatever function that you're selling to, right? You are in some form an extension of that team, because you're helping them in a way hit their targets. So they'll only be real with you if you're able to build that connection with them.
Yeah, I want to try and tie that back to the, I guess, definition of psychological safety, because a lot of the stuff that you talked about, I think we understand now, sort of in the modern era of sales development, as best practices. Like this is what SDRs should be doing. And a lot of organizations say that they want their SDRs to do this, but at the same time, like sort of Damocles style, they're holding like quota and like KPIs and metrics over their heads, being like, yeah, do whatever you want. But like, also, if you don't book 8 meetings this month, you're going to get put on a PIP. And that's sort of like the antithesis of psychological safety, right? Like telling them to do something and then expecting a whole different result if they don't do what you want them to do. And I think that to what we had talked about previously, and to what you're pretty bullish about online, is that you can't just as a rep know that this is how you should be doing things, but as a manager, as a sales leader, like you should be enabling and encouraging your reps to do this regardless of, right, like what the short-term results are. You talk about it being a long-term game. Talk a little bit about like how, I guess, like defining psychological safety, how that kind of comes into play with authenticity, and what it means for like an SDR to have that, and what it means for a manager or leader to actually encourage and enable it and build that environment for someone.
Got it. I'll start with a couple of experiences. Right now, when I got started and had my break into the SaaS industry, the kind of company that I ended up joining, just because of lack of options and me being grateful that I'm having an opportunity in my hand, I gave it a shot, right? It was my break into tech. So I was surrounded by people who were not like me. They were probably, they've been in the same company for, let's say, 15, 20 years. It's kind of like a very traditional setup in terms of, even though it's a software company, it's kind of a very traditional setup. And in that setup, I felt like, I second guessed everything that I was like, okay, whatever is coming out of my mouth, I'm second guessing that. I'm questioning that. I can't be like, yeah, it's good to have a filter, but like, how much can you filter, right? Like you have to be selective, but like how selective? So I only lasted there a couple of months, right? And the reason for that is it felt exhausting. It felt like, it felt claustrophobic. So then after experiencing that kind of a setup, that kind of a culture, I surprisingly and luckily found an opportunity where the company in itself is selling a solution for workplace culture, right? So joining a company that sells the solution for workplace culture was like, okay, that's a match made in heaven. I've had a bad experience. Let me try this out. But going back to psychological safety, right? I didn't have that in my first job. I had that in my second one. And the change that I saw in myself was completely drastic. Be it in terms of my creativity, be it in terms of my output, my motivation, everything. Like getting out of bed was not a task. And the first 9 months were so bad that I felt like, okay, is doing a job a typical job for me? But I didn't know better because I hadn't experienced better, right? And after that, the change that I saw in myself, I like unknowingly, I ended up picking an organization with psychological safety. It didn't occur to me in that moment to evaluate it. But when I got into the system, when I learned more about workplace culture, when I learned more about what psychological safety is, so let's talk about that, right? What it is basically is, do your employees feel comfortable in expressing their opinions, in expressing their thoughts? It could be positive, negative, and do they feel comfortable knowing that they won't, like, positive intent would be assumed by the recipient, right? Be it the manager, be it the VP, be it the CEO, right? Would they assume positive intent with your thoughts? Is what basically psychological safety is. Because if they assume positive intent, you won't be punished, even if, let's say, you said something or you did something that was out of order, right? So and you will mess up a couple of times, right? Out of 100 things that you try, you will probably fail a lot of times out of that. But knowing that I'll only be able to succeed at the other things once I try out enough things, right? If I try a couple of things and I don't know that these are going to work, only by experimentation, only by having the comfort to speak up, by having the comfort to be like, okay, do I feel safe enough in being like, let's say I go to my manager and I'm like, I've been doing this for the past, let's say, couple of months, have started to excel at it. What's something new that I can do to keep myself driven, right? To keep my creative juices flowing. So what's something new that I can do? That was only possible because I felt safe enough in speaking up. I felt safe enough in being like, I won't be reprimanded for these things that I want to do. Forget about want to do. I won't be reprimanded for bringing them up. In most organizations, for some reason, there is a lot of disparity between how comfortable your junior employees feel in speaking up when, let's say, there is a leadership meeting, there is a town hall, there are so many opportunities, but you don't feel comfortable in sharing that because you feel like, I'm probably going to get a DM after this saying, what the hell, right? Why are you talking about something that we have to be hush-hush about, right? So, yeah, that was my experience in the second organization. That then the aspect of psychological safety became a non-negotiable in all the future opportunities that I was ever going to explore, right? Do I have the comfort and the freedom to be myself is absolutely a non-negotiable. So that is why, like, I saw a drastic change in myself, and there has been a lot of research done on this, right? Your employee engagement levels, your team engagement levels, the output, the creativity, the motivation. When your team feels that safety, it goes off the charts. But if you don't have it, then it has a negative experience on your team's morale, your team's performance, and a lot of other trickling effects. So it's not a nice to have at all. Like, by not having it, you're losing a lot, and you're also not, you won't gain the upside of it as well. So yeah, if you have to make a change, make it now.
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say I really like the way that works. Obviously, it's important throughout the whole organization, but thinking about how it relates to sales and the SDR role, where 90% of the time or more, you're failing, right? You're not getting a hold of the prospect, you're disqualifying them. And you have to accept that and learn how to learn from your mistakes and learn from your failures instead of avoid them. And I think it's so funny that there are organizations out there that say, like, no, yeah, like, make 100 calls. It's okay if nobody picks up. How dare you share your opinion? Like, don't fail internally, even though we're telling you need to get used to failing externally. The difference there is stark. So it totally makes sense to me that you go to a company that's like, oh, like, if we give our employees internally the same amount of comfortability or experience that they get that they have to do externally, it just makes perfect sense to say, like, you learn from your mistakes. It's not something you should be afraid of, which is a whole other problem that everyone seems to have. To be able to train someone to learn from their mistakes and embrace them, both internally for the company and as a salesperson, I think, like you said, it's a need to have, not a nice to have.
Yep. And for the viewers, right, let's say if we want to, if there's a sales leader who's watching this right now, or a founder watching this right now, if we talk about examples of how can you do that for your team, right? A couple of things that come to my mind is, again, I think I forgot. I think Austin Fuller, AJ, you showed me that, right? He talked about having a blue team and a red team, where the red team is intentionally trying to spoil things. It's trying to break things so that when it actually breaks, you know what to do, right? So similarly, right? Let's say, and a huge shout out to my ex-VP of sales in the previous organization, Bhavan Kochar, right? Now, let's say I was three quarters into my role, right? And the first 9 months were just nailing what the core of the job is, which is pipeline, right? So after that became an easy job because I was doing a lot of things, building a following on social media, using social selling, really nailing down the culture of the region that I'm selling to, really nailing down on what do they care about, right? After all the basics and knowing that it's working for me, I was like, okay, because I can't go to somebody and be like, I want to try something new while knowing that the core part of my job that I have right now, I'm failing at that. Because most people would take it in a nice way. Most people would be like, just focus on your job right now and we'll do these experiments later, right? So I would assume that I would rather go to somebody knowing that I know the basics and I got that done. I got that taken care of. Now, what else can I do, right? So I personally would prefer that. So I did that like in the first 9 months, right? When hitting weekly, monthly, and quarterly quota became a breeze. Then after that, I started to go to my manager and be like, hey, so this is the thing that we used to have, right? We had KPI 1, KPI 2, mostly focused on pipeline. But KPI 3 was something that was fun, right? Something that is not, that keeps you excited, that is not related to the core part of your job, right? So for example, I was anyway closely working with the marketing team on a couple of exercises, right? A couple of initiatives. So another initiative that I had picked, and I had already given them a glimpse that I can do it because I did it before it became a KPI as well, right? Which was basically, I was selling in the Southeast Asia region. It was completely new to us. So how do we build a brand presence there? So, just getting people who have a following, who are HR leaders in the region, getting them to talk about us or getting them to collaborate with us, right? So I was anyway prospecting to them. Now I had an easy in where I'm nurturing them, where, I've taken on the task of collaborating with 15 HR leaders from the region and compile that into a nice ebook, right? So we did that in a quarter. I got 15 collaborations on board, and that's the best lead magnet that has ever performed in the company's history so far. I don't have the exact details right now in the past year or so, but yeah, it worked so well that I in itself, it ruined my day in a way because I had those leads to take care of, right? I can't be like, okay, it's like, I'm done with my work for today. Let me, take care of these tomorrow, because there were so many leads flowing in.
I mean, I know, yeah, like the example that you brought up, I feel like is a really good
one to the example.
What managers and reps can do, right? Like if you work within an organization that has that psychological safety as an SDR, it allows you to get creative. And it allows you to think of ways to make an impact on the bottom line of the organization outside of the traditional KPIs that you're measured with. But leaders should look at that as an example of being like, wow, like I have an SDR who is such a self-starter that they're looking to do like literally just marketing work. Like that's the job of somebody on your team, right? Like they would normally be the one to broker those relationships, get the quotes, build the ebook, the whole thing. Like if I have a rep who's willing to do that and it helps them and it helps us, like, how would I turn down that win-win situation? But it's only possible if you built an organization with this idea of psychological safety where you feel comfortable as an SDR saying, hey, I want to try this. And you're not to be reprimanded for it. You're not going to be told like, well, that's not your core job. So like sit down, make your 80 dials today, and then we'll figure it out later.
And that's the benefit of being at a startup, right? Why are you at a startup? You're at a startup because you can experiment, you can try your hand at different things. If you go to a company with 10,000 employees, you'll be put in a box. The reason you chose the hard startup life is because you have the room to experiment. You have the room to try out new things and fail and learn, iterate, right? So make sure you use that and make sure that the leadership enables you to do that. Another example that happened right now, 1.5 years into the role. Now I've been doing the whole inbound, outbound game for the past 1.5 years, right? We had separate quotas for inbound, separate for outbound. So been overachieving them. Now I'm like, okay, I'm done with inbound. I don't want to do inbound anymore because you can only be so creative with like bunch of leads flowing in every day, right? You can only put in so much effort individually. But let's say, you give me enterprise accounts to crack, right? As an outbound SDR, now the individual effort that I was, I was thinly stretched across, let's say 100 accounts working in inbound. Now I can only focus on a handful of them, really dig deeper into them and put that creativity to use and give you the pipeline. The number would be like, of course, if it's enterprise opportunities, the number would be drastically less. But in the end, the pipeline would be much, much higher, right? So, high value tasks, I pitched for that. And both my VP of sales and my founder was like, that's a great idea. Let's give you that. They reduced my quota by, I think, 35 to 40% and made it totally outbound. And, along with a couple of more experiments that we were doing. But basically, they did that. Now, it wasn't like, okay, you want to do outbound, your quota remains the same. You still have to do all the things to own that variable, right? They reduced that so that I still have the peace of mind. I won't get into the pressure of hitting that quota just because it's a looming number in my head. And with outbound especially, right? You can't have that end goal in mind that, hey, I need to book a meeting with them because I need to hit the quota. So they did that. They reduced the quota so that I can be experimental. I can develop an outbound playbook so that a team can get built around it specifically for outbound in the coming quarters. So again, that's another thing that they let me do because they saw that, okay, he has this potential. He's done it previously, but what if he focuses on that? What if he focuses on things that he's good at? What will happen if we let him do that? So they were on board with doing these experiments, and the end result was really good. Yeah. So the only reason that was able to that happened is because they made me feel safe.
You talk about letting you do the things that you're good at. Like, managers and leaders need to know what their reps are good at. It takes communication to sort of level the playing field there and be like, oh, I know that this rep is really good at like starting and cracking those enterprise level accounts. So let me go ahead and try and get them on an outbound team. Whereas maybe this rep is really good at mapping through inbound leads that come in, and they're really good at trying to find additional stakeholders. Like playing to your rep's strengths is really beneficial there.
Yeah.
For you, I know something that you're very bullish on, and something that you tout a lot of reps to do is to be active on social. Were you posting on LinkedIn like regularly and sort of sharing your experiences while all of this was happening, so that while you're doing all of this new outbound stuff, like you're complementing that with the stuff that you do on LinkedIn?
I used to find a nice balance between both, honestly, because I know the kind of returns having a social media following, especially on LinkedIn, can have for you, right, in your long-term career growth. So it was, yes, about my full-time job and how I can get that done, but it was also about how I can use social media to assist me with that full-time job while also building a safety net for the future, right? So that social media strategy, gives you benefits in multiple ways. So I was balancing between both, and the reason why it was it became a knack is because I'm talking about things that I can talk endlessly about, right? I'm talking about mental health, I'm talking about workplace culture, I'm talking about sales, right? So I don't feel like, I'm talking about something that I don't know jack shit about. And this was before chat GPT times, where you can just sound like an expert. Now you can sound like an expert even if you don't have any expertise on it. But like before that, this wasn't there, and you had to actually create everything from scratch. So yes, like in the initial days, maybe the self-doubt creeps in, where do I know anything about anything? And am I, like, would anyone care about the experiences that I've had and what I had to say? But I was like, what do I have to lose, right? And funny story, like I was in college, or like I think I had just graduated, and there was this. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn courses, but I was like, okay, I need to get started with this journey. Let me pay for something, so that if I pay for it, I will end up doing it, right? And I will end up completing the course, and I will end up acting on it. So, but it was kind of expensive, and I didn't have the money. So I gave my sister a call, and I explained her this is the situation, and she didn't ask me two questions, paid for the course, and I did that. And nothing that you don't know already, like it's just packaged in a nice way. But what it makes you do is, you've spent the money, you've done you've watched everything. Now it's about putting it into action. So I didn't overwhelm myself. I started slow, one post a week, one post every 2 weeks, just making sure that I put all my love into it, right? To put all my, whatever thoughts that I have, package it in a way which connects with the reader, right? So that is all I focused on, without sounding like an expert, because I see a lot of people who are getting started with their journey now, trying to sound like experts. But let's say if you go to their profile and notice that they're 2 months into, let's say they're talking about a new company that they joined, and what the company does, and the problems that it solves for, right? And they're positioning it a very such a subject matter expertise way, where I'm talking about something and I know a lot about it. That comes across as fake. But when you talk about your experiences, when you talk about your journey and share it with the community, right? That is when the authentic self comes out. That is when people don't feel like, okay, for the last year, this person didn't say anything, a new role, and now they have a lot to say. Like what happened, right? So it's a slow journey that you have to take. It's like, don't chase the quick highs. Don't be like, okay, let me see if I can get 100 likes on the first post that I do, and if that doesn't happen, then give up. So it has to be about putting those small consistent efforts, making sure that you're talking about things your audience cares about as well, right? And yeah, that just literally helped snowball into a lot of benefits, be it work-wise, be it outside of work, be it future opportunities that I might have. This podcast, right? You wouldn't have reached out to me, AJ, if I was inactive on LinkedIn and hadn't put in the effort in the last 2.5 years. So you wouldn't even know, we wouldn't have had any conversations. Yeah, yeah. So how did that happen? It happened because I was like, okay, let me put myself out there and see if that resonates with people. So, and again, that only happened because I was like, okay, if I put 40-50 minutes on LinkedIn and creating content for LinkedIn, I won't get a message from my captain or my manager being like, what are you doing? Why are you not making calls, right? Because I know that they would understand how this benefits them as well. They would understand how this benefits me, but also the company, right? So just a lot of variables play, like it ended up working out, but yeah, you just have to stick to it. Don't give up after the first week. Don't give up after the first month. Be consistent and know that it's a long-term play. It will give you benefits, maybe not in the instant, in the short run, but in the longer run. And if your companies are not supportive of that, like if they forbid you to create your own content for yourself, then it's probably like you should be the person to go out and post on LinkedIn, so that you can have those inbound opportunities. You can have an opportunity where they treat you fairly, they treat you with that safety, and get out of this mess, right? So you should be the person to go out and post. In fact, if if your company is forbidding you to do it, and for everyone else, right? If your company is not enabling you to do it, just make sure that they understand the benefits of it. They don't have to enable you to do it, but just make sure that you have that conversation, and you because it's very scary to feel like, on one end I'm putting in this love to create this piece of content and posting it, while having this fear that what is my manager thinking about me, right? Are they thinking that I'm wasting my time on LinkedIn and not working on opportunities or leads, or do they understand that it's a part of the entire game, right? So I was able to do that just because of I ended up in such a place where I was able to do that for myself.
Yeah, it really all goes back to, right, that trust, that psychological safety. Like, you as a rep being able to communicate to your manager, like, listen, we can keep doing things the same way that we've always done them, or we can experiment, we can try some new stuff. I can get active on social and see if that helps our brand, my brand, generate new MQLs, et cetera, et cetera. And an organization that doesn't have that psychological safety kind of built in, you won't go to your manager and ask them to do that. You'll never know if that's something they want to do. And even if you do, and then they end up saying, please don't do that, it all ends up in the same spot where it doesn't work, you've wasted your time, and now they have a kind of like a bad image of rep.
Yeah.
But, given that psychological safety, you can experiment. You did it. It worked out really well for you because you were able to articulate to your team, like, this is something that I think can help us. And they gave you that trust and that safety to be able to do it and prove it out. So there's a lot of opportunities here, right, for reps and leaders to understand, like, the benefits of having that safety net, having that psychological safety built into the organization, and the opportunity, the potential for you as an SDR or even as a manager to use that and make a positive change within your organization. Like, do something that you think can make a positive impact, follow through on it, and see if it does. And if it doesn't work, like, no harm, no foul. Try it with something else. There's no shortage of ideas amongst you, your team, your organization for how they can be better at building buyer experiences, at penetrating enterprise target accounts, at just having better community events, like millions of things that your company can probably improve on that your reps have ideas about that you'll never know if you don't have this safety net built in.
Absolutely.
If there was one thing that you wanted the audience to take away from all this stuff that we've talked about, if you could, like, sum it all up into one sort of neutron star point, what would that be?
I would genuinely motivate, or like, if my story helps at least one person get started with their personal branding or LinkedIn journey, I think my job here would be done. And a couple of things that I would like, if I have to lay down the next steps for anyone who is looking to get started, or is at a very early stage in their, let's say, LinkedIn journey, what I would suggest them is, let's start with the basics, right? Given that you have everything in place in terms of your headline, your bio, your experiences, your headshot, everything, all the basics in place. After that, what do you do, right? I would highly suggest that, so take it like a stepwise. Step one, for the first 3 weeks, target 5 out of 7 days. Don't punish yourself if you can't follow through on all the days, but leave 5 thoughtful comments every day under posts that are from, let's say, people that you look up to, your team members, your like people in the same function, in the same industry, right? Just leave thoughtful comments and get into a habit of having that thought, okay, I'm writing this and I'm posting this, what are people going to think about this? So just to get comfortable with that thought, leave these comments, keep doing that for 2 to 3 weeks, right? While you also start maxing out your connection requests, the weekly connection request limit. Because if you're just getting started, you don't have a large following, and if you post a piece of content, it won't be distributed in a large number of people, and you're just going to be demotivated. So before you put in all the love into content, get started with building that network and leaving thoughtful comments. Get started with giving back, right? Now, 3 weeks into it, you've left, 100, 200 comments under relevant posts. You've connected with maybe 200, 300 people. Now, what do? Now, you start writing, right? You focus on, let's say, pushing out one piece of content every week for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And it does not have to be about your profession. It doesn't need to be. Pick something that you can talk about for hours with someone, right, over a cup of coffee, and just talk about it. Package it nicely. Know that, like, algorithm-wise, what works, what doesn't. Just take care of those. Take care of that and publish it. Do not second guess yourself while you click on that publish button. Let it go. If people don't see it, they didn't see it. So there's nothing to be, there's no harm done. If they saw it and they liked it, then great. Now you know that this kind of thing works, right? So do that for 3 to 4 weeks, one piece of content, while you don't stop doing step 1 and step 2, which is connecting with people and leaving thoughtful comments, right? You have to give more than you ask in return. So give more engagement than you ask in return. And yeah, someday it will come to you as well. But basically do that for the next couple of weeks, one piece of content a week, and push it out. Now, after that, what will you do? How do you grow, right? Focus on experimenting. Focus on trying different topics and seeing what resonates with your audience. So let's say these are the things that your audience cares about. These are the things that you can talk about. What's a sweet spot between them, right? So that you don't feel like an imposter while talking about those things. You feel like it's coming from the right place. It's genuine. It's coming from your own experience, and the audience also cares about that. So that will only happen when you try out those experiments, those different pieces of content, topics, and just push it out and see how people react to that. So how people engage with that. And from that, you will start to understand, you'll do some analysis that these are the kind of pieces of content that works for my audience. These are the kind of pieces of content that don't work. Also, disclaimer, never do polls. Yeah, just a heads up, never do polls. But anyway, so moving on, right? Now you've done these experiments. Now you know what's working for you and what doesn't. Just start doubling down on that, and you will find your way. But yeah, a couple of heads up or a disclaimer that I would want to give is it won't be easy. You will have to put in consistent effort, time every day, every second day. You will have to do that. And you might not see instant results at all. And you will second guess yourself. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? But just believe in the process. Just trust the process. Just know that even if this doesn't result into something good, just putting your vulnerable self out there in front of people is a scary enough task that 98 out of 100 people won't do. You're the rest of the 2 who is attempting to do it, and it's good enough, right? It could have been better, but it's okay. It's good enough. You gave your shot, and if it didn't work out, great. But at least try it out and see what it can do for your personal journey as well as your professional journey.
Yeah. Great advice. If you've got an organization with psychological safety, 100% take what Jagrit said to heart, because that can really propel you forwards, just like you said, personally and professionally. So thank you so much for being here on the show. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for inviting.
Go ahead, take a stab and say, if people want to learn more about you, I'm guessing LinkedIn is a good place to do it based on what we've talked about. But
absolutely,
if they want to connect with you, any other way that they get in touch with you or continue this conversation?
Absolutely, LinkedIn, that's the way to go about it.
Awesome. Well, this has been Unsubscribed. Thank you so much again, Jagrit, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so
remember
much.
To subscribe to Unsubscribe. Get more tips and tricks like this in your inbox. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jagrit.
Take care. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks for watching this episode of Unsubscribe, the Demand Drive podcast. If you want less of those nasty unsubscribe emails in your inbox, go ahead and check out some of the content we have to the left, and make sure that you subscribe to Unsubscribe to keep your SDR team in tip-top shape.